It's pretty much winter at this point, no leaves on the trees, but those falling leaves, or leaves that already fell, you can use them. What's up guys, Dan here, Coalcracker Bushcraft. So we just finished up our Bushman class. It's like the capstone class, hunting, trapping, heavy duty, woodworking, all that good stuff. Participants did absolutely wonderful during the class, and the weather couldn't have been better. There were days that it was cold. There were days that it was like somewhat warm. We had snow. Yeah, it was great. But one evening when we all went to bed, the wind really picked up and it was just gusting all around and crazy. And then that got me thinking about different survival stuff and bushcraft stuff and shelters and how to keep yourself maintained in that kind of environment. And I thought about this one thing, and it had to do with leaves. And that is how we can use leaves in conjunction with our tarp style shelters to keep ourselves more protected from the elements. So a lot of beginners, I feel like, do this, and then when you hit that like intermediate stage of things, you sort of get away from it because you feel like I shouldn't be doing that. There's like rules all of a sudden. And then when you get more advanced, you're like, yeah, I just need to get this done. And that is utilizing the leaf litter on the ground to block wind. Okay, so when we set up a tarp style shelter, now this is our shanty shelter, so it does have sides, but this is a great representation. When you set the shelter up, okay, there are going to be times that you're going to get gaps between the shelter and the ground. And the reason for that might be your setup, but it also might just be because the ground's not even, or you can't get your tent pegs all the way in and pull the tarp really close to the ground. Having gaps like this, especially in colder weather with wind, is going to not be devastating, but it's going to make your life more uncomfortable when that wind comes across and gets underneath there and gets inside your shelter. If you have a fire out front, it can also change that smoke direction and just really wreak havoc throughout camp life. So one thing that you can do for this is, of course, you can utilize the extra sewn in loops or grommets on your tarp, but I could tell you as a tarp maker myself that we generally don't put these here as extra tile, because even if I pull this down, although it takes care of some of it, it doesn't take care of all of it. These extra tile loops are generally for other types of configurations. So these kinds of gaps, yes, it will eliminate, but it's not going to be a perfect fix. So that's where the leaves are going to come into play. All right, so you can see even with wet leaves, because it did snow here, there was snow on the ground, it all melted, you can still use these things to block wind. So a lot of times people think, all right, well, I'm just going to pile the leaves up like this and get the job done. And that's great. That's sort of what we're going for. You want to make sure you have enough leaf matter up against your shelter. It's not going to ruin your shelter in a short term. If you left it like that really long term, like months, yes, the tannins and stuff in the leaves are going to destroy it. But short term, you definitely want to get this done. But here's the trick to it. Not just piling leaves on the outside. The real thing here is to get some of the leaves, and I know you're thinking, I don't want leaves inside my shelter, but if you go from the inside, all right, get a few inches and then build it outward. Now what you did is created an insulative layer on both sides of the fabric. So you can see the leaves are up over the fabric's edge, inside and outside. This also helps a lot with crosswinds. So if some of these leaves do get blown, guess what? Those leaves on the inside are still going to be there. Plus, you're generally going to be inside your shelter, okay, with your blankets and your gum blankets and all that stuff. So that's going to help push those leaves outward, not allowing them to get totally blown inside and ruin this effect. So use leaves. It's part of nature. It's part of what we do out here in conjunction with your shelters, and your life will be that much better in windy conditions. All right, so if you like this video, hit like and subscribe down below. Also, check us out over at coalcrackerbushcraft.com for our blogs, our classes, our gear, like this shanty shelter that's really cool, our tarps, all that good stuff. And then until next video, stay in the woods.